From Washington, this is the HPS Macrocast with Hamilton Place Strategies and Markets Policy Partners.
Welcome to the Macrocast. This is Tony Fratto from Hamilton Place Strategies. We have Brendan Walsh and John Fagan from Markets Policy Partners. Guys, this is our big, end of year, year in review Macrocast. It's fun. It's been a crazy year. I mean, we've had a string of crazy years. This was another one. I think one of the things that I take away. There's a lot of I think we have a pretty good list of the sort of the big events that happened this year, and we'll take a walk through some of them. But just contrasting with 2020, which was a tumultuous political year and economic year, and not a lot of certainty of what was going to happen with COVID, in the sense of whether we were going to have an effective vaccine that they could begin rolling out. By the end of 2020, they were able to start doing that. This has been a year of rolling out vaccines, and I think we probably started the year thinking, well, we're going to get these vaccines and everything's going to get back to normal pretty quickly. And it kind of did for a while, didn't it?
We were there in June. We really thought that it was over.
But as we've now getting used to things, things can change pretty quickly. But look, the thing, if we go back a year, the election had happened. It actually was in fact a Biden victory. They counted all the votes. They were going to be certifying that race, but you had the events to come, which were the Georgia Senate races to find out who's going to have control of the U.S. Senate. And then we didn't know that, or maybe had a hint, but no one could have imagined what was clearly to come on January 6th. And those things happened on successive days, and it was a hell of a way to kick off the year. But we did learn that in short order that Democrats were going to control the Senate, a 50-50 Senate, but Democrats were going to take control of it and be able to set the agenda. Biden was in fact certified on January 6th, even with the pretty clear attempts to try to overthrow the results of the election and some cockamamie ideas to try to get the vice president to decertify the election and throw it into the House of Representatives. Those things didn't happen, but what did happen was an attack on the Capitol that we're still dealing with this to this day, and we'll be dealing with for some time.
And it's been a year, and really the details are just starting to be presented to the American public.
Yeah, I mean, these processes go pretty slowly. I mean, there's no question about it that this is a process, not an event. For us, looking back at January of this year, it seems like an absolute eon ago, and that's not uncommon to have that sort of temporal dysphagia where you have although it seems like January was a millennium ago, it also seems like time flew by. But these echoes and these reverberations are clearly still with us. From a markets perspective, looking at those events, those consequential events to start the year, a couple of the things would have been, you put in a very counter consensus at a market reaction. Going back to the not just Biden's election, but the Democrat sweep in Georgia. Right. The classic motif is Wall Street doesn't like Democrats that much, and they would rather have divided government, a do-nothing Congress, rather than an empowered Congress unified under one party that gets stuff done. That wasn't the case. Actually, the markets were certainly celebrating the Biden win, the expectation of a concerted and more forceful sort of fiscal approach, and really took an upleg in this reflationary surge on the Georgia results. So that was a little bit counter consensus as on the political side. And then I think that it wasn't the first time we've seen this dynamic before, but the market's absolutely looking past January 6th in a way that if you markets have market reactions. Bad market reactions have a way of focusing the mind. And sometimes when there isn't an adverse reaction, it's not particularly convenient for policymakers that are trying to come to grips with this issue. But again, yeah, even when it was going on, markets really didn't take it all that seriously. And I think that there are obviously chapters to be written on political risk, but political risk and geopolitical risk, I think, are maybe going to be more of a story in terms of market moving events over the 2020s than they were over the past decade.
Could certainly see that. I mean, I know, if I would say if we were making predictions on those days, and we were at the time thinking about what Democratic control of the Senate was going to mean, we knew that there's still a filibuster there, but we were all talking about the fact that they have access to reconciliation and are going to be able to do a whole lot of big things. And here we are a year later, 11 months later, and they're not able to do those things. They were able to do some pretty big things. They were able to get the original big COVID relief package done that had some big things in it, including a lot of spending on child tax credit and some other things, boosting that. They were able to get the infrastructure bill done, which was a generational effort. Took multiple administrations to try to get something like that done, and they were able to do it. But not the big, soft infrastructure bill and the social program. And
that's the interesting point, because most presidents, you get one or two big things to pass, and Biden's done two. The first one you might be able to discount a little bit because we were in a pandemic, and it was kind of a continuation of what the Trump administration was doing, and kind of everyone was on board with that. The second one was a big one. It was a bipartisan, very important infrastructure bill that the last 5 presidents haven't been able to pass. Now we come to the Build Back Better, and that's a lot of the things that the Democrats ran on, and we had a little bit of a bump in the road over the weekend, right?
Yeah.
Do you think, Tony, do you think it's a dead letter? I mean, the headlines are obviously very dire. Manchin has been kind of all over the place, right? And he may swerve in the other direction. Who knows? He just was coming out the day after he said he's a no. He's coming out with some alternative plan that doesn't look all that different. It's like, what do you think?
Yeah, it's been our view that they're going to get something. They are going to get something done. I still think they are going to get something done. I still don't think they go into the election year. It's going to be in the election year, but they're not going to go into the election season without getting something done with these collections of programs. I mean, that includes some of the climate stuff, some of the social safety net and opportunity. To me, like some of the things like the child tax credit. There are items in there that actually do boost growth, right? Because they allow workers to work. So there's the child support elements. There are and then they want the tax cuts, the tax increases in there too, right? Like it's not just paying for the bill. The Democrats do in fact want to raise taxes on corporations and on wealthier individuals, whether there were spending needs or not. That's a desire of theirs. So I think they're going to come back and try to, and that includes, by the way, Manchin. For what all Manchin's opposition, the things, the tax increases are something that he does support. So,
but I'm curious. I mean, you've been around for a while, and you've been in political events. So Manchin's going to go home. And it's kind of similar to Obamacare. People don't like Obamacare if you ask them, but if you ask the things that Obamacare is made up of, it polls well. It's kind of similar to Build Back Better, especially in West Virginia. Most of West Virginia is about 2/3 like a lot of the things, especially the social safety net that is involved in it. You have some pretty bad audio clips from the interview on Fox, where he kind of seemed to be talking down on his own constituents, that you'll spend all this money on drugs and things like that. Do you think he's going to get bombarded over this Christmas break by Democratic super PACs that are going to run campaigns, or is this not going to happen?
I don't think that's what he worries about. I think Manchin, among more than anyone else, has the opportunity to get it to win, to have win-wins, and the win-win is he gets to show his conservative base,
fiscal conservative base, yeah,
that he's fought for what he will call a reasonable number with no gimmicks. Look, the gimmicks are the gimmicks that he's complaining about. Most people if you're a good government person, like they're gimmicks, right?
They are.
Right. I mean, like we're trying to fit something into a budget window.
They are
like,
gimmicks.
We're just going to start it in 2 years rather than starting it on year one. And we're going to finish some programs. Yeah, we're going to finish some programs.
SALT actually raises revenue, right? Because of the way they score it in the out years and things like that.
Yeah, and then everyone comes around and can say then that it's paid for, but we all know that those things are going to be extended. Exactly. Of course they're going to be extended. So we all know this.
And that's
the
history of government. Once you give people money, it very rarely comes
take it away. Yeah. So anyway, look. Well, we're going to talk a lot more about it when we come back in January. I know, but that's my bad. They're going to get something done. It's going to be closer to a number. It's going to begin with a 1. I think it's going to be below 1.5 trillion, and Manchin's going to get exactly what he wants.
And you're already seeing that from people big Democrat voices that are not in the government saying like this, and this is good. So it costs 1.3. Just take your win and move on.
Yep.
It's a slightly change of topic, but in terms of obviously this heavy legislative calendar and that the Biden administration has undertaken in its first year, do you think it sucked some of the oxygen away from the rest of the functioning of government? Obviously, this could never be a traditional transition.
This is a great question,
right?
Great
and when you look at the number of empty positions that haven't been filled. It's been a really slow process.
Especially when you're all haunting Treasury.
There are a lot of you walk around Treasury. There are a lot of nameplates that don't have any names on them, and it's not just because people are working remotely. There are a lot of positions still to be filled, and when you look at the foreign policy, it's been it's hard to articulate what the Biden overarching vision for foreign policy is. Obviously, the situation in Afghanistan was very regrettable in a lot of ways, and a lot of people use plenty stronger language than that. Do you think that is there a sense that the Biden administration is in some ways waiting to hit its stride because it's spent absolutely almost all of its bandwidth and energy on this legislatively intensive first year?
I think the Biden administration has they've put themselves in some unfortunate situations, right? Did I say this? It's coming from an administration where, we put ourselves in a situation where questioning the competency of the administration is something that's hard to recover from once you've given evidence that you're screwing some things up. And I think that's where they got off on the wrong side. So they've had two problems. One is, they start off, they do get the big, American Rescue Plan, and they get that big win. Looks like good momentum on vaccines and a lowering of the, incidence of COVID. So it's looking pretty good in the spring. But you have Afghanistan and immigration that looked incompetent. Right, looked as bad as anything that happened in the Trump administration. And I'm not here to argue with whether their policies were right or wrong or different. It looked terrible on TV every day what was going on on the border on immigration, and the exit from Afghanistan looked like a catastrophe. Looked awful. There's no putting good lipstick on that pig. It was a pig, and everybody could see that it was a pig. And even again, if it was the right thing to do, it looked awful. So that's
and you're right. Ironically, people agreed with the decision to remove, and they did maybe the most amazing airlift in the history of the world, but they screwed it up. And it doesn't really matter whether you did it or not. The political,
it's what it is.
people.
It is what it is. Yeah,
exactly.
You're not going to go fight trying to
I'm 100% with you. Yeah,
yeah. So that's how they. So you start questioning them that way. Then you have the months and months of wrangling over. The immigration bill's passed, but doesn't get done. It's not getting done. It's like it's being held up, and this BBB is getting held up. Inflation coming. Inflation starts becoming the story.
Yep.
Now, again, it looks like, what are these guys doing right? Everything seems to be going wrong. And they put then the other way they put themselves in a bad situation. There may be no way out of it, right around it. But like, if you want to get Build Back Better done, it puts you in a tough place to go out and talk about actually all the good things that are going on, like how good things are, right?
I know.
You have to be talking because otherwise, why do you need to go spend, $3.5 trillion, which is the number that they were dealing with for most of the year? We're going to go spend $3.5 trillion, but you want to say, well, job creation is great. Interest rates are low. People are getting back to work. Things are reopening again. The summer, right? This is like things are looking really good heading into fall. Things are looking great. We're thinking like we're out of the woods on this, and that the economy is getting back on track. Stock market is hitting highs. There were a lot of good things to talk about. It was not malaise. Like, this was not the malaise economy, but you kind of have to talk about all the things that are bad so that you can get people to support Build Back Better.
Yeah. And the things that went bad also lowered his popularity, which then became the narrative. So even though the things you're doing might be popular, you're not popular. So the things you're doing aren't popular anymore.
Yeah. So there's a hole, there's a hole.
And now we have Omicron, and we have higher inflation numbers, which are going to be sticky for a while. And that's become a political, football. Hot potato. Yeah.
What else was a hot potato was just this whole, the inflation story was like, there were.
Well, it started with
hot takes.
It started with Larry's numbers
everywhere.
Yep. And it hasn't gone away.
It hasn't. It was like if you're an econ student or econ person,
even econ 101,
it's been amazing. Like, we haven't had real inflation to talk about in decades. Then we got like the Marvel universe.
It's been 30 years
we have the Marvel universe of economic thinkers out there battling out in the skies, and Larry Summers writing papers and op-eds, and these guys are fighting it out, and we get to watch it and even participate in it sometimes on the inflation wars.
It really is. It's funny, inflation was just, it was such a headline driven narrative. Very obviously the data was there to justify it clearly. But the data, the headline doesn't capture the nuance of the data. Brendan has been our go-to for insight on what's really under the hood of these over the past weeks.
Yeah,
and months.
I'm not really good at predicting what it is, but I do understand what makes up the inflation number.
Yeah, and inflation has been obviously a very big political hot potato, but in markets, it really hasn't been an animating aspect of the markets in the way that you might think, given the level of sort of discourse and panic about it in the political and sort of newspaper headlines. The markets obviously had market-based gauges of inflation expectations and oil prices and that sort of stuff. We saw a big October and November pop, and right now what it's looking like is, it looks like, in the classic parlance of Wall Street, that was a false breakout. Those have turned tail pretty quickly. Now, the Fed is not a passive actor in this. Obviously, part of the retreat that we've seen in these inflationary dynamics as they're reflected in the markets are because the Fed has pivoted so forcefully and so abruptly, some would say, toward inflation fighting. But, when you look at the markets over the past few weeks, the debate really in the markets is, is the cure worse than the disease when it comes to inflation, right? And 3 rate hikes next year into a supply shock economy is that's pretty challenging, especially when it looks like we've got a big fiscal drag coming.
The balance sheet. plus
Yep.
a complete reduction in the balance sheet. Yeah.
Yeah, fiscal
Right.
drive is coming too. Yeah.
And so the Fed, because the Fed's policies work, they get into the real economy through the markets. That was Ben Bernanke's big, like, post-retirement thesis. He came out and said, QE works like this. It does this to financial markets, and that eventually drags, real economic activity along.
Yeah.
And the issue with that is when the Fed changes gears into inflation fighting mode, the first thing that gets hit is asset price inflation.
Right.
And that's kind of the first line of, the most direct impact that it has. And so we're wary and watchful of the potential that the Fed's pivot is, eventually gets swamped by the, disinflationary forces in the market. We've seen, look at oil prices. They've come down like $20 in the past month. So that's a big move.
It is a big move. And I think, look, we've said it a couple of times on the show. I don't think we're not going to be talking about inflation the same way in the middle of 2022. I really just don't see it. Now, look, one component of that was, the supply chain story. When we talk about the supply chain story, there's like a lot of things to talk about. Chips, lots of things we're still dealing with today. There was the number of ships that were, I said chips, CHIPS, then ships, SHIPS, that were waiting off the coast of the Port of Los Angeles and other coasts waiting to get processed, and whether there were dock workers or trucks or whatever it was to move product. But the image of when we say like disrupted supply chains in 2021, it will be that giant ship stuck in the Suez Canal. It seems like,
and the image of the small backhoe digging
the
it
little
out.
backhoe digging out the ship.
And
that will be the image of supply chain.
It'll be like, engine that good.
Are you kidding me?
Launched a 1,000 memes. It was the Ever Given. Boy,
Ever Given, yeah, Ever Given.
I've had some bad days, but I don't think quite as bad as the captain of the Ever Given. Boy, that must be a pretty bad feeling.
I mean, it wasn't like the Valdez, spewing oil into the Gulf of Alaska, but
that's right. It could have been worse.
Could have been worse, but it was like still, it's one of those things you just look at like, how the hell did they do that? But it's the symbol of broken supply chains, which I think people thought for some period of time that there was this view that we can't get any products here, and not the corresponding just the super strong demand that was that's been pulling those products in. We had strong demand that wanted all this extra stuff. The shift from services economy to the goods economy is pretty powerful, and we're still seeing the evidence of that.
It's also coming at a time when this isn't obviously the cause of what we're seeing, but it's coming at a time when U.S. policymakers, since the Trump administration, have been rethinking global supply lines in national security terms, and that is obviously was accelerated by the pandemic and the questions about pharmaceutical independence here in the U.S. All of our drugs coming from China and the components and that sort of stuff, PPE and that sort of thing. And there's a lot of soul searching going on, and I think that it's a motif that we've seen again and again it played out in various different ways to different effect in the supply chain. This kind of idea of transition. Now, obviously, the strategic transition is really in its early phases. It's more concept than reality now, but certainly the idea of transitioning from truck drivers to electric, to automated driving is one of those things.
Killer robots that'll take
right. Yeah, there's you've been telling truck drivers for the past decade that it's a terrible dead end profession and they're all going to be out of work. And,
and then you turn on the TV at like 10 o'clock at night and all it is truck driver advertisements.
Yeah.
You earn $175,000 plus benefits if you become a truck driver.
To work for as long as we need you until our furious efforts to go to automated driving spare fruit. Yeah. And then you'll be out of a job. But until then, you're going to be in great shape. And there's a similar kind of dynamic playing out in the energy space, which is the transition. You're trying to let go of one trapeze before catching the other. And so we've got
maybe by like 30 years, we're letting go of trapeze.
Yeah, there are just a lot of complexities, and that's not even delving into the labor supply. That's a whole different kettle of fish. And the number of not just sort of labor economics PhDs that are going to be launched on the back of this issue, but just the sociological questions about it. What is underpinning this? Are we ever going to have in this generation going to have a mindset that was consistent with the pre-COVID kind of work-life balance mentality? It seems like we can't go back.
No, I think it's still going to be dynamic.
You hired a couple rounds of people in COVID.
Yeah, we did, and it was the things that you learned a lot on how to do things. Like we thought we were pretty advanced on doing some things remote and doing training and onboarding, and we really relied on all of those processes we'd have. But you're right, we had like a couple classes of associates and analysts that have come through that were overwhelmingly onboarded, trained, actually hired, recruited, hired,
and you've never seen them in person,
tested, case tested and writing tests, begin work, onboarding, training we do extensive training. So all that work that we did, all remote. There were some people I didn't meet until very recently that I met in person. So we're proud of the work we did, but we also learned how to be even more adaptable than we ever were before. And the ability, everybody feels pretty good about how to work, wherever they need to work and in whatever conditions, and to keep our team structures working. So I think, when you stress an economy, we're one tiny little story, right? But what you find out is that the most adaptive, dynamic, companies who have like strong foundations, strong cultures, they're more efficient, they perform better, they emerge out of those shocks much stronger and better, higher performing companies. I think you can see that with a lot of companies right now, that they've been able to get really good at a lot of things that they were forced to do in order to survive. And it's going to pay off on things like I think you're going to see productivity gains going forward, not because people try to do silly stories that productivity happens when people get to work from home, and that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is like all of the things that they get to learn how to do, all of the structures that they build, communication improves. Those are big things for any organization to get better at, and I think you're going to see a lot of companies do that. Just be better companies, really battle tested kinds of companies.
Yeah, it was funny. I came in for our Thanksgiving dinner, which was a lot of time for the first time we all saw each other in the first time.
Yeah,
and a lot of the new hires didn't realize that Tony sits on a gigantic throne with a scepter in the middle of the office. They were a little taken aback.
That's it. But I got to learn sometime, right?
Check out HPS Insights, a regular podcast from Hamilton Place Strategies, bringing you the latest on policy debates affecting the business and political communities. Available on the HPS podcast channel on your favorite streaming platforms, including Apple, Spotify, and Google. Tune in to the latest episodes and learn more at hamiltonplacestrategies.com/podcast.
Some other things that we saw this year. Can we talk about China for a minute? I feel
like it's the biggest story. I mean, other than COVID that really we're not talking about.
Can we say that Powell
and
is
it's gonna be the thing. Yeah, let's talk about Powell first.
I just want Powell 30 seconds. We all thought he was going to be renominated. He was renominated.
I was out of consensus. I thought that he was going to get. I thought it was a close call, but casualty. I thought Brainerd might get it.
Yeah, you thought he would be a casualty of that.
Yeah, I thought that they would have to give the progressive wing something, and with the stock.
But that was before.
Yeah,
COVID.
Build back after. Yeah,
but that was a long time ago. That was before COVID, really.
100 years ago.
Yeah, there were some obviously, and inflation came up, and so there were some things that made it obviously tougher to change from him. But the sort of narrative on the street was, oh, now he's been renominated, now he can pivot hawkish, and the question really is like, well, which side are the political winds blowing? I think that if you're there'd be plenty of folks on the Democratic side of the aisle who would be encouraging him to fight inflation because inflation is very inconvenient for them politically right now. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it's not clear if the the transitory story, as we said, is quite as invalid as a lot of the critics have charged. Time will tell. But you look at the Fed. The Fed is not in the transitory camp anymore. And you look at their economic projections, you know what kind of inflation level they've got for next year? It's 2.6%.
Yeah, exactly.
I know.
It's not, we're in transitory mode, except all but name. But
on the flip side, when you're the central bank, you can be honest about the next 3 to 6 months. You have to talk your own book.
That was
4 years out.
What are you going to say? Like,
we're screwed. Policy. I think it's going to be.
Who knows? Might work. Might not.
No idea.
Probably not.
That is true.
Yeah. All right. So Powell, but we get another term of Powell, and we'll have Jay Powell to dive into for a few more years here. China isn't going anywhere either. Things, not getting better. I don't think anybody expected them to get better under a Biden administration. They certainly have not. And, events like, Taiwan, concern over Taiwan and the treatment of the Uyghurs and whether they've been forthcoming as necessary on COVID. Lots of reasons to worry
also
about
a demographics issue. China has god awful demographics.
Macro situation. Yeah.
I mean, if you were to take a step back, the Trump administration was very hawkish on China. Obviously, not across the board, but had very hawkish elements on China, Navarro, et cetera. And the case that the Trump administration made writ large was China's a malign actor on the world stage, from tech transfer to geostrategic to human rights to buying up strategic companies and
which all are true.
Yeah, and all this stuff, and investor protection is inadequate for U.S. investors into Chinese assets. And this year was about Beijing validating those claims as best they could.
We often joke if you want to know what China's plan is, just literally ask them.
They're telling you.
They're telling you. Yeah, they were like, "Oh, you think that our that the investors aren't protected in our markets? Hold my beer or hold my
remember Jack Ma used to be a fun guy that we saw a lot.
Yeah, I mean, these Chinese stocks are an absolute. They are a flaming wreckage this year. I mean, these are down these are magnificent, previously magnificent companies, Alibaba and that sort of thing.
Not even we're talking about the real estate component.
Oh,
This is tech. This is financial.
Yep, valuations cut in half. These high profile IPOs. I mean, the image of President Xi just throttling their golden goose is the one that investors are seeing. Obviously, it's some are wading in here to buy the dip, but this is a big sea change in this common prosperity is a big sea change in the way that the Chinese Communist Party orients itself toward the private sector, and especially the tech sector, given the data. And it's basically gimme. You guys don't.
Very much so. Look, if you were looking at Chinese companies, 4, 5, 6 years ago, and you were you're trying to put a valuation on them, you had to think like what the thing that was missing with Chinese companies for most of its existence is like they had a lot of the manufacturing shop of the world, making lots of stuff, and some good technology and some competitive businesses, but very few for an economy that size. Almost no brand names,
right.
Globally known brand names. Lenovo notebooks were one of the only ones that they sort of bought themselves into, have done a really great job with it. Very few global brand names, but you had to think that if you're looking at these companies saying, well, that's not going to last. If I'm looking at not just the tech companies, but retail and apparel and other kinds of companies that were growing in China, that they're going to be able to be very highly successful global firms. And what the Chinese leadership is saying, nope, we're not going to let you be highly successful global firms because you can only have one master, and that master is the Chinese Communist Party, and you're going to share data with us, and you're going to operate in the way we tell you to operate. And if you're a global investor, you look at that and you say, well, there's something there. It's still a giant economy over there. They're still going to be able to operate in a lot of places, but they're not going to be able to be those, dominating global firms,
especially on the data front.
You can't trust them. Yeah.
They have no enforceable property rights in their own home market. And that's
right.
and that's something that everybody knew intellectually and just assumed wouldn't be a problem because of the assumed incentive structure that Beijing has to support those activities. But clearly the cost benefit.
John, let me ask you. I mean, you've been involved in China for 23 years. We have the transition coming that's not going to happen. How significant is it that there's no successor to Xi, that he's the dictator for life? Like, what does this mean?
Well, it was really, in the context of China, what we're seeing what it means, and really the application of this, much more muscular state control I think is a hallmark of the Xi era, and an era it will be rather than a couple of terms, quite clearly. And this is the ramifications in the U.S. were stark. I was in the Treasury Department when it became clear that he was intent on abolishing term limits, and that was the moment that the convergence thesis was extinguished. And the idea that, the richer China gets, the more they will absorb our value system. And that was an animating argument, and it wasn't a dumb argument either. It just happened to be wrong. And that moment where he decided to take that step was when that lost the argument. And that side of the case lost the argument. And there aren't a lot of things that both sides of the aisle can agree on in the United States Congress. But countering China on a variety of different fronts is one of them.
Yeah, I think that's been kind of one of the most interesting insights that I think a lot of people have accepted. In the election, Trump tried to paint Biden and the Democrats as weak on China. I think everyone has finally accepted there's no one that's weak on China. We all agree that we're China hawks.
It's just stylistic and priorities, and obviously the Biden administration is much more multilateral, and we expected that, and that's what they're trying to achieve. So it's obviously suboptimal, and the trends are not going in the right direction. But it's hard to, certainly politically, they would gain nothing and risk a lot by going soft on China.
No, I don't think it's politically possible, but I also think that just from given where we are in the world on these big questions and China's role and the need to present a united front on the things that we consider important, civil liberties, free market economics, democratic elections, the ability to, use your voice. Those things are not, that's not where China is. That's where most other countries, including countries in China's region, in Korea and Japan and even Thailand and many other countries on its border do have a view that that's the way different degrees of perfection, but that's what the modern nation state, how it should operate. China's not operating that way, and but the effort of the Biden administration today needs to be to link arms with all of those countries and make sure we're presenting a united front to China, so that it's clear that China's the outlier. It needs to be clear that it's the outlier on those things.
So, Tony, on that front, let me ask you. So, the Biden administration, we're not going to boycott the Olympics, but we're not sending official representatives to it. What does that mean from a diplomatic?
It's just enough to irritate China.
And they clearly are irritated, because we did the same with Russia, and Putin didn't care at all.
We went to,
and not just we, but other countries did it, and Putin's like, screw you. But China clearly seems to be irked by this.
They are. They don't like they lose face of countries do that, and they'll find some way to do something that irritates us. That's the way they operate. So they will find something to try to even the score. But look, you have to do something to have all of on so many fronts with the Chinese, on religion, culture, economics, national security, all of these things that we're at odds with the Chinese, regional security,
which are really the big five that we care about.
Right. How could you have all those things and then show up? Now, I've always been in favor of showing up. I think one of the greatest moments of the 20th century was, Jesse Owens in 1936 in Berlin. That was like a prideful moment. And there's a lot of politics around. All of that.
But to have Hitler have to stand while he got his.
For him to have to see that. Let's not let our athletes go. And in fact, we're going to have athletes there, and we're going to have media, the world's media there. Athletes should go there and use their voice and talk about what's important.
And also, especially in the Winter Olympics, we're going to dominate them. They're not particularly good at Winter Olympics.
Yeah, I'm in favor of doing all the things. Put messages on your snowboards and whatever else you want. Do it all. We'll see what happens. I'm going to watch, because I love watching those sports, and I don't care where it is. And I love athletes, and I love to see them. I love to see the events, and it's some of these events. It's the only time you ever see them. It's the quadrennial opportunity to watch biathlon.
I was going to say biathlon is a great watch. Right? That's a great watch.
It's a great watch. I will absolutely be watching biathlon. I think probably, I'm surprised in America we don't have more sports that require shooting.
Right. Seriously, how can we not be the best at the shooting?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why. You would think
full
in America,
auto biathlon, fully automatic biathlon.
Snowboard biathlon and whatever. Let's skateboard biathlon.
No.
Basically, you need people running and then having to shoot precisely.
Exactly. Well, I've been skating the last few weeks, so I might be on the hockey team.
Nice. I'm not holding out hope on that at all.
Yeah, the NHL is not going, so they might actually need me.
Yeah. Hey, look, we're closing the year with, we're going to look forward to the Olympics, but closing the year, man, we did get Omicron. I was just tweeting about this, there's a lot of anger over the fact that we don't have enough at-home tests. We're running short on at-home tests, and people are upset about it. And where are they? Why don't we have them? And I just try to remind people that a month ago, the word Omicron we didn't use it in the context of that.
Even 2 weeks ago, we really didn't use it.
Yeah. People didn't I didn't have the need for an at-home test. I figured if I thought I was exposed, I'd go somewhere and get a test. An at-home test sounds nice, but it's not as good. So now everybody wants an at-home test, and nobody can get them because, they didn't have them. But Omicron, that's just to say that Omicron came so quickly. I mean, like a wildfire faster than anybody could prepare for it, and it's continuing to spread, and we're having a slowdown. But I can't help feeling like it's the end of COVID. And I know it's crazy to say on days when we have like record cases, but what I'm saying is like we have all the tools now. We have the vaccines, we have the boosters.
The therapeutics are coming now.
Very
so we actually just did a call with our clients with Dr. Christopher Morris, who is the head of epidemiology at GW. So this was at 11:30 in the morning. So I actually have some insight on this. He really thought that Delta was the big one that was kind of going to burn it out. So while he understood that there's always variants that could come, he didn't really see Omicron coming. Omicron is just so infectious that it whether this is the end or not, a lot of people are going to get it, and especially the unvaccinated. Basically, almost every unvaccinated person's gonna get this. This is how infectious this is, and unfortunately, a lot of people are going to die and go to the hospital. We got to hope that we don't overwhelm our hospitals, but there is a chance that this is the one that is just so infectious that it's not necessarily the end, but that helps us transition from the pandemic stage to the endemic stage.
I think that's where we're headed. I think we're heading to the endemic stage, and I think if we have the therapeutics,
the therapeutics are a big deal, and it looks like the FDA is going to approve it this week. The Merck and the Pfizer, because really at this point, in terms of death, you're really talking about either the unvaccinated or the highly at risk population that is vaccinated.
Yep.
The highly at risk vaccinated population, we can deal with that, and these pills can really help. The unvaccinated is a little different situation because it is still a huge part of the population.
Yes, and people think Omicron came and Delta's gone away. Delta has not gone away. Delta is still there. It's just
that was his point.
New cases are Omicron,
right? Even
if they're less lethal, the lethal Delta is still out there and still absolutely having a huge impact on.
Exactly. And while you're still unvaccinated, while you might survive, you're still that incubator to produce a new variant.
Potentially, yeah, for sure. It's funny. This was Francis Collins, who was the head of the National Institutes of Health for the past 10 years. Really remarkable guy. But he was doing some exit this week interviews. He's stepping down after 10 years. And asked about his regrets. And it's like one of his regrets, he said, was that, I'm paraphrasing, that, we should have done, because if I would do it all over again, I would have done, we should have done more study of, more behavioral studies. Because if you had told me a year ago that we would have 60 million Americans who are refusing to take accept this vaccine in the middle of a pandemic, 60 million Americans refusing to take a vaccine because of misinformation and disinformation. He wouldn't have believed it. But here we are. So, it's
so interesting. I asked Dr. Morris about that, and he said basically every time we introduce a new vaccine, from the Spanish flu to polio to smallpox, there's always that subset of the population. It changes in terms of percentage. We're a little extreme on this time, but there has always been a subset of the population that just refuses to take a new vaccine.
I think we need it in the school curriculums, but I keep saying we need economics in the school curriculum too. And so which do we need more? I don't know.
I think we need economics. We need consumer finance, especially in the school curriculum. Yeah. And I think we need maybe a little epidemiology.
Hey guys, let's take a break and come back. I want to talk about a couple items and a look ahead to 2022. You're listening to the Macrocast.
Markets Policy Partners provides sophisticated financial market analysis that is independent, accessible, and actionable for a broad audience. Learn more at marketspolicy.com or visit them on Twitter at marketspolicy.
All right, back on the Macrocast. You guys, I don't know, it's a year, end of year. I think we have to we need to talk about something that we personally remember this year. I was going to give like my pick for best book of 2021. For me, my favorite book of 2021 is not a book that you open up. It's an audio book. And like, I'm not a big Malcolm Gladwell fan, but I'll tell you.
You stole mine, you bastard.
No way. Did you listen to this?
It was my favorite book of the year. And
favorite
also,
book of the year.
Beyond my favorite book of the year, he's inventing entirely new way to consume.
It is. What Brendan and I are talking about is Malcolm Gladwell's audio book, Miracle and Wonder, Conversations with Paul Simon. And it was my favorite thing.
Oh, no. So you didn't steal mine. So I love that one. But mine is the Bombers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so you go. I'll do mine next.
Miracle and Wonder. This is 9 interviews with Paul Simon where he goes through and talks about his career and the development of songs and albums and making through, and the point of a really creative genius over 50 years of creating music and the ups and downs of that career, but just the insight into just amazing music. And I was a longtime huge Paul Simon fan. I loved this book. It was one of the very best things. And it's not Malcolm Gladwell. You're listening to Malcolm Gladwell and his co-author interviewing and having conversations with Paul Simon about the music. And it's really
right.
Brilliant.
And it was never written to be written in the written form. It was it was almost like making a movie. So he's really inventing entirely new medium to consume like a book.
Yeah, absolutely.
So my favorite was
tell me about yours.
Bomber Mafia, which was the one that preceded it. And this is about the guys that left World War I and basically started the Air Force. They went down to Alabama, and then they came up with an idea that you could drop bombs on strategic places, and then the infantry would never have to go in and die. Within this whole time, then World War II happened. Literally, the reason that we found out about the jet stream was because we were trying to bomb Japanese towns near Mount Fuji, and we didn't know the jet stream existed, and we were just so far off. But most importantly, the book is written, with actors playing out the roles and audio. It's a wonderful way to consume a book like this.
I think that's better. I'm listening to another book right now about the history of HBO, and it's the same thing. And I saw a podcast about that. That looks like it's brilliant. It could be produced. It could have been produced better. I mean, the technical quality of it. It's like they didn't have. They needed somebody to go in and listen to it and make corrections. There was a lot of like double takes in there, things like that. But the concept is the same, where it's actors performing.
Right. Yeah. So actually, randomly, one of my good friend's wife was hired by Malcolm to do this, and his goal is to never actually write it. It's to only produce a book in audio form. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, it's really terrific. John.
Yeah, my choice is a book for this moment in the U.S. policy sphere. It is I think it's the key work to give readers insight on how a top-down, federally led infrastructure campaign like what the Biden administration is trying to embark upon, what it can be and what it can deliver to all of us. This book is called Vision: Our Strategic Infrastructure Roadmap Forward by the late, great Norman Anderson. For those of you who don't know Norman, he was the CEO of CGLA Infrastructure and also the founder of the Strategic Infrastructure Performance Institute. He taught at Columbia. He at Seoul National University. He was just voluble writing for Forbes. His videos, his leadership forum that he held annually in Washington, D.C. for the industry was just, it was the event for the infrastructure community. And he was a dynamic thought leader. We hosted him once on the Macrocast, and I encourage you to all go back and find that episode and listen to what he has to say. As dynamic a thought leader as you can find in any field, and we lost him way too soon at a time. It's such a tragedy for his family, friends, and colleagues, but also for the great loss for the country, honestly, because his experience and his insights are now needed more than ever. But this book is a fantastic repository of his vision, and you can see on every page, you can see that he combines this hard hat on the ground, can do, roll up the sleeves, practical mentality of an infrastructure project manager, which he was, combines that with a strategic vision, an intellectual rigor, optimism, hope, and imagination of a true thought leader. And it's an enormously rare combination. And Norman, rest in peace. We were enormous fans of him and his work. And so certainly Vision is his. It was published earlier this year, and just a fantastic read.
Yeah, I have it, and I can't wait to read it. Hopefully that's what the holidays will provide some time to really dive into it and read it. And you said this, but just confirm it. Just a delightful person, also, just a really gem of a person.
He was a great guy.
Yeah, he gave so much. He was he would always joke about it. He would say, "There's a lot of free Norm out there."
Yeah,
he was very, very. He was just bubbling with enthusiasm and energy, and wanted to was engaged with the West Wing, was engaged with policymakers on Capitol Hill. Just boundless energy, and really a terrible loss. And we miss him very much.
But I will add one more, since Tony and I kind of overlapped. The favorite book that I actually did read in person was Risk, a User Guide by General Stanley.
Oh, love it.
It was kind of through you guys that I found it, but I found it was a very insightful book. Really, no matter what you do, whether you're in business, military, or just at any walk of life, it was.
I'm so glad you mentioned it, Brendan. It's a terrific book. It's a textbook on dealing with risk and preparing yourself for risk and understanding it. And it really, truly a wonderful book. And we had Stacey Kerr and I had the opportunity to interview General McChrystal last week on HPS Insights. So if you want to look through your podcast on the HPS page, you could find that interview. But he's a terrific person. It was a wonderful interview, and the book, I can't recommend it highly enough either. It is a user's guide. In fact, that's the subtitle, right? It was a user's guide.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah,
it really is. Yeah. I thought I was making it up, but no, that's like part of the name of the book.
The user's guide. Yeah. Exactly.
It's a very practical, readable, terrific book if you're just trying to understand from an organizational enterprise standpoint and decision-making standpoint, understanding the component of risk in your decision-making and how you should think about it. It's really excellent. Hey, what about predictions for 2022? What do you got?
Yeah, mine is, I'm not sticking my neck out too far, but the markets are pricing in 3 rate hikes next year for the Fed. I don't think we're getting 3 rate hikes. My prediction is I'd be surprised if they get in 2. I'm going with 1.
1 rate hike. That's not where, but that's counter consensus, right?
It's very below consensus. Yes.
And I'm
going 1 rate hike. I think Governor Waller said, hey, if we roll off the balance sheet, maybe we won't have to hike rates. I think that's a real tell. I think that the Fed is going to be really challenged by this unstable equilibrium between inflation fears and growth fears. And
I'm going to go 2 rate hikes because I just don't believe they can do 1. I just don't think it's like an.
If you're going to do 1, you're going to do 2.
It's potato chips.
That's what I think. But they may regret the second one. I think we're going to see a dramatic slowdown in inflation in 2022, and and there'll be lots more reason to question whether the Fed, not their intentions, but sometimes timing is tough with these things.
And also, it's unprecedented time, so you can't just assume that things are going to play out. If supply chains unwind and we get back to normal, prices are really going to drop precipitously, which is incredibly bullish for the Patriots winning the Super Bowl.
I can't. I can see the Patriots winning the Super Bowl. I'm going to be happy if the Steelers manage to avoid a losing season, which they only need to win one of these last 3 games to once again avoid a losing season. So that's not a prediction. That's just a hope.
I'm pretty confident that I'll be at a Super Bowl parade for both the Patriots and the Red Sox.
Super Bowl parade for the Red Sox,
or the World Series parade for the Red Sox.
Hey guys, awesome Macrocast year. It's really fun. We have some good stuff. We have some stuff planned for next year too. I do want to give a shout out to our amazing podcast team. Will Newell with us today, Jack Eichner, Lizzie Johnson, Nico Pena Brown, Matthew Robbins, Catherine Johnston. I mean, just amazing, on the leadership of Brian DeAngelis and Julia Desarega. Just really a great team for all of our podcasts, and especially the Macrocast. You guys, we don't talk about it a lot, even though they're wonderful, amazing people.
No, I don't think people realize how much work goes in behind the scenes.
Yeah, 3 cheers for the Macro team. They tee it up for us every week. It's great.
It's great. Thanks, guys, for everything, and to you guys, and to you and Brendan, and to Matt McDonald is a regular here. Brian is a regular here. Stratton Curtin made a bunch of appearances. We'll do more Stratton in 2022. We're going to get Stratton a little bit more on energy, which is his strength. And spend
Megan Pennington, and she's returning to our team. Yep.
Yeah,
the great John Dick. Joined us a number of times this year. Very insightful.
We're going to be back with John, taking a look at how consumers came out of the holiday season. That'll be fun, and see what they're looking forward to with Omicron. Some new insights from John and civic science. So yeah, just a terrific year. It was great to have all of our guests on, and great to be with you guys every week too. Just it's one of the joys of my week.
It's the highlight.
Likewise,
get together with you two and talk about the stuff that we always talk about, but just record it. So it's great.
When we came up with the idea, it was very simple. Instead of talking in the hallway about it, let's do it on video.
Yeah, and it's great fun. All right, guys, thanks a lot. Have a wonderful holiday break, and to the Macrocast listeners, we'll see you in the new year. Have a wonderful holiday.
Thank you for listening to the HPS Macrocast. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and share.